And just like that, bada boom, bada bing, it is Tuesday night, time for Talk Time with TJ Triple T, number 230 on May 26, 2026. It's 2626, and I'm so glad you guys are here. My name is TJ Zebel. I like to call myself a professional problem solver, but I always follow it up with, no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking questions, helping people find the solutions they are looking for. My peeps are showing up. I'm feeling good. We are we are live on YouTube as well, which allows me to say, hi, Mom. My mom's up in Minnesota. And she tunes in to catch in on all the craziness we have going on here. For the rest of you on YouTube, I appreciate you showing up. Thank you so much. And I would ask all of you, in fact, all of you guys, make sure that you have done all the YouTube thingies that only cost you a couple of seconds. Do a couple of clickety clicks on my channel, which is TSWB Helps on YouTube. And click the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when we're back on the air, and like some videos, leave some comments, and please share them with other people. We don't gather here for the massive wealth that hasn't showed up yet. We just do this because we like to get together and share ideas and help people out. And see what else. I also have a website I'd love to have you check out at www.thetSWB.com. The tall, skinny, white boy.com is what it stands for, always has, since way before the internet. So no matter what you find that does not stand for the tall, skinny, white boy, that is not I, and I am not he. I am the tall, skinny, white boy. And on my website, you will be able to find some information on some of the stuff that I get to do. I'm privileged to help people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief. I work with athletes from beginner all the way up to the pro level. I've offered, boop, one of my squirrels just ran by and scrambled my thought process. Corporate coaching, yes, I do corporate coaching, help people with relationship challenges, all sorts of stuff. So if you know anybody that is dealing with some challenges, have them reach out. I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. That's right, 30 minutes of my time to chit chat about what challenges you're up against. And when we're done, if I feel that we're a good fit, I'll let you know. And if I feel for some reason we are not a fit, I promise I will let you know, and I'll do my best to help find a colleague that can help you get the solutions that you are looking for. Let's see what else. I think we're up to time to introduce the tie of the week, a little something I started back in 2024. And this is the third of the three new ties that I have. So, once again, I got me some critters, and you guys might recognize these. It is a little T-I double got, tigger, tigger, tigger. Mm-hmm. Gotta love a tigger. So, now that we got Tigger on the mind, let's find out if who's got something cool to share from the last time we were here 7 days ago. Anybody? Mark.
Yeah, I gave myself a little reward for all the hard work I've been doing, and I ordered some mugs on Amazon with some funny sayings. So this was one of I'll show them in subsequent weeks, but this one says, I will put you in the trunk and help people look for you. Don't test me.
Uh-huh.
Don't test me.
Yes.
Another one I was going to get is I'm a time traveler from the 1970s, and that's just how I roll.
Yes, I was born in the 1900s. Don't test me. I have acreage and a backhoe.
There you go.
Anybody else got any cool stuff to share? Must be a quiet week. Lenora.
I was hosting, I host a podcast, and the title of it is the Entrepreneurs Forum Podcast. And I had a guest today who I've interviewed him before, and he was absolutely lovely. His name is Dr. Matt Markell, and he's actually wrote a book. It's called The Antipreneur, as in like the anti-entrepreneur. And I thought that was really interesting. And he just shares so many insights, especially about wealth and finances and how to create your own wealth, but not through entrepreneurship, through using stock markets, 401ks, things like that. And he has tons of insights on that. So that being said, he shared with me some very interesting insights today. And one of them, I will. Can I share it now, or should I wait for hour 2? Like I got stuff.
That's your call.
One of them, I will share it now because it just made my heart so happy. I have said about the cloak of invisibility. For example, like if I'm happen to be doing work with somebody and we happen to be in a public place and there's their emotion coming up and they're like, oh my God, people looking at me. Nope, there's a cloak of invisibility. It's all good. And that's one of the things that I lean into. And he had shared about the cloak of invincibility. And what that was is that in the days where you feel like, I don't want to show up, or you're thinking like, I don't want to go network or whatever it is, it's you show up with the cloak of invincibility, and you have 3 things that you need to share with these people that are going to change their life. Just 3 golden nuggets that are going to absolutely change their life. And if you don't show up without this cloak, and if you don't show up completely, their life is going to be completely different. And I thought it was such a fun idea, because how many times do we go to work, specifically if it's not doing something that we're extremely passionate about, or if we go into an environment, whether it's networking or a family event or something, and you might not be like really excited to be there, and you think, if I didn't show up today, how different would their life be? So it was just something to play with, and I will share the other things later this evening. So in hour 2.
Awesome. That is some cool stuff.
I got another really good one too, but I'm now gonna make you all wait for hour 2.
Uh-huh. Those little teasers.
How about it?
Elijah.
You know, first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So,
Good afternoon.
Oh, that reminds me, and I'd actually completely forgotten, but back in like 2015 or 2016, one of my first trainings, I had somebody install like a magician's cane and a cape. And I had completely forgotten that I had those. And just now talking about this invincibility cloak, I just remembered my cape and my cane. And that's kind of awesome. Yeah. Thanks.
super cool. Worth the price of admission. And I got to admit, a couple of these lately. Last week, Mark brought up something that I'd completely forgot about from training. And It's kind of like I've said that with all these trainings, it's like going to, or it's like purchasing tools for a mechanic. And after a while, you get so many tools that you forget about that one that's in the back, the bottom, in the back of the drawer that you purchased, you were taught how to use it, you got good at it, you put it in the drawer, and then you forgot about it. And it's such a good little tool. So another good reason for us to show up, review, get some reminders of what we've learned. Anybody else got anything they want to share? Mark?
Yeah, something Elijah said last week did the same thing. It triggered a memory. I've only used it a couple times, but when people feel like these things in their life are too overwhelming, they're too big, and just have the person imagine, was in a training, I learned this from Dr. David, and it was like, you make yourself twice as big. Whoosh.
Yes.
And you look down and those things, they still seem pretty big. Well, then you do it again. Whoosh. Now you're as tall as the building. Now you're looking down. It changes your perspective, and it's like, oh, that's not too big. No, that's not too big. That's not too bad. I can handle that. Yeah, there you go. And just changing your perspective on your challenges makes them doable. And
Yes.
something Elijah said last week, somehow opened that drawer that I hadn't opened in a while. It was a little squeaky.
Yes. Yes, a little squeaky.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like all of our squirrels. And for those of you that are watching for the very first time, if you don't recognize the expression of squirrel, you will, because I've got squirrels who know squirrels, who bring squirrels, who are related to squirrels that show up. So if we're going chatting along and all of a sudden things, oh, by the way, squirrel, you have no idea. Even I don't know where some of these directions will go, but we always seem to make it. So if nobody else has anything to share, I guess it's about time for us to get rolling. If this is your first time watching Triple T or watching one of the recordings, the way it works, it's a 2-hour show. First hour, I do my best to get through 3 topics that I picked up for the week. And then when the first hour is done, that's when we change things up a little bit, and it's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a topic or a question, and I let the people on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And so if you're watching, join us. We'd love having different insights, different views, and we just like having people come on. Who knows where it'll lead? So please join us. But looks like it's time to get into the show. And topics tonight are lineage breakers, blackout, and halfway. So, getting into lineage breakers, everybody has those family, we're just going to call them challenges or quirks or history or all the above. Well, we've always done it this way, or I'm this way because my father was this way, my grandfather this way, da 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 da. Well, at some point, if it's not benefiting you or the world or all the above, when would now be a good time to break that lineage and be the one to step out and change things up? And according to Eastern, I don't know if you would consider it medicine or all the above, energetic work, They say that when you break some of these lineage issues, it affects 7 generations forward and backward. And that can seem like a little overwhelming, kind of a heavy, oh my gosh, why am I the chosen one? Why not? Why not you? Why not be the one, and I'm not going to say it's easy, because I know it's not. I've helped many clients now break generational challenges. And sometimes that you'll get family members that will react to it, and not always in the best way. Well, who do you think you are? What, you think you're better than me? What, you think that, what, you think you're hoity-toity now, being the first person to ever go to college in our family? Do you think you're the first person, or you're hoity-toity because you're the first one that doesn't want to rage on everybody? Do you think that you're all that and something because you're the first one to break the alcoholic streak in the family? That's where being the lineage breaker is the most important. What little something I've told enough of my clients is, you'll know that you're accomplishing something when you start getting pushback. Dogs don't bark at parked cars. They wouldn't notice if you weren't changing. It's the changing that makes them feel uncomfortable, because a lot of times in the changing, you inadvertently end up holding up a mirror to them, especially if they grew up with you and they can see that you, for some reason, somehow managed to break the spell, to step out, to become somebody that they should, could, or want to, but haven't figured out how. And a lot of times what also happens is they see you changing into somebody that they don't know, they don't recognize, and they can feel like they're losing you. I've had clients who, sadly, the person giving them the most grief and the most pushback was the parents. How dare you change? How dare you become, what's all this? What, you think you're Mr. better than everybody else? And you have to be ready for that. And it doesn't stop there. It can be friends, it can be coworkers. For those of you that are watching live or watching the recording, you don't get the privilege of being able to see the comment section over here, which I'll also let you guys know. I've found I've got to point this out. I should write it in my opening notes. Yes, my eyes are all over the place because I have a huge monitor, and so I've got comments over here, and I've got participants over there, and I've got people all over here, and So yes, even though I am ADHD, ADD, whatever, I'm actually watching people on my monitor. But Elijah put in, "Fly, little bird, fly." Yes, and that's where it makes me sad when, especially when it's the family members that are causing the most grief. I've told a number of my clients who are changing and noticing the pushback. It's like if you're going to run a marathon for the first time, the people that will give you the most grief are the ones that love you the most, that have known you the longest. Well, you can't do that. What makes you think you can do that? Oh my God, you know what you have to go through to be able to do that? Hey, do you know the kind of training? How are you going to get, how are you going to make, and they'll be the ones standing on the side of the route, throwing sticks at your feet. And it'll be the strangers, people who have no idea who you are, never met you before, that will be cheering you on the loudest. And you're like, what the? And some of it's out of that weird, what type of love? And some of it is pure jealousy. Some of it is narcissism. Some of it's Machiavellian. Some of it is control issues. I hate to say it, but not all parents are great parents. My mother is. My mom is the best parent ever. Just ask me. I will tell you on camera, off camera, in my sleep, all the above. My mom rocks. And she'll tell you she made some mistakes and she did the best she could at the time with the tools, knowledge, energy. I've apologized to her many times for having to raise me. My, yeah, Nancy has known me long enough. She's like, yeah, if I were your mom, I'd have cracked you a couple of times. So it's understanding that, again, stepping into the role of being a lineage breaker is not going to always be easy. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, if you're doing it to solidify and enhance your values and criteria foundation, in the end, the work, I haven't found a reason yet where the work has not paid off for people. And Elijah put another great comment in there, said, I don't get sad, I get excited because it just means that your triumph will be all the greater. Yes. And I've had clients come back a couple of years later, and the other part about being a lineage breaker, if you hold on to that long enough, the people around you will change. You run enough marathons, pretty soon your family goes, oh, maybe they are a marathon runner. Maybe I should think about getting a little bit healthier. Maybe there was something to not eating at Burger King every day. Any comments, ahas, opinions, epiphanies? Lenora?
I would say mostly since COVID, I've had a lot. Maybe I had more changes, but like post COVID or even during COVID, it's been like massive. And I find that I've definitely lit a few people up. And even in some of the decisions that I've made about getting a dog, I've lit a lot of people up. And Elijah, it's hysterical that you wrote Fly Little Birdie Fly because I have a robin's nest right outside my deck today, and they started to take off. And I'm like, I might as well have been glued to this thing like National Geographic, guys. Like I was obsessed with this all day long, watching these birds and like cheering them on and just watching them move. There's two have left, one is still there, in case you're curious. But especially when it comes to, and I think that's something to be said. It's the hardest when it comes to family and friends. And there is a quote from Lisa Nichols, and she says that the doorway is only made for one. That you can go through the doorway, but you can't take people with you. And especially when people are trying to prevent you from going through the doorway or almost scare you into, well, what if this is going to happen? What if that is going to happen? Of which I realized over the weekend just how much I was worrying unnecessarily, which is very insightful and scary at the same time. But really noticing that you can't take people with you. And even though they want to hold you back, especially as you're making these changes, you truly have to multiple times a day remind yourself you're okay. It's okay to make these changes. It's okay to find ways to help yourself. Ultimately, helping yourself helps other people, but people are terrified of you helping yourself.
Very much so, sadly, but very much so. Mark.
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts. One was the you know definition of impossible. I have a hummingbird feeder outside my window, and according to the rules of avionics, hummingbird shouldn't be able to fly, shouldn't be able to hover, shouldn't be able to back up, and they are the living definition of impossible. So when I watch them, I'm like, yeah, impossible is just a word. The other thing is, like you said, when you break a leg, like my son, first one in our family to get contacts. And, I had tried, but, again, back when they had hard contacts. But after a few months, like you said, he was kind of inspiring. He said, in a funny way, I said, if that little shit can do it, I can do it. So I got my contacts. So, but yeah, that's just a couple of thoughts.
Yes. Yep. And that's the other part of being a lineage breaker. Again, when they see that you are dedicated to it and that you are making the change, you are becoming, or you have become that person, and they can no longer deny it. It's a very good, well, it's a very large mirror holding up to them. And some will, well, they'll take it one way or the other. I can't do that, or they'll become inspired. But that's not yours to set up and judge. Like I tell my clients, yours is to be the one to do it. Get out there and do it. Take care of you. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first. All the above. Elijah put another good comment in there. It said, it's a quote, the self is only a threshold, a door, a becoming between two multiplicities. And I'm not sure how to pronounce the names for the quote. Deleuze and Guattari.
That's it. Deleuze and Guattari.
For the win.
The book is called A Thousand Plateaus,
1,000 Plateaus.
and it's not the easiest thing to read, but it's very profound.
I'm not shocked that it would be in your library, my friend. Any other inputs, ahas, epiphanies? Holly.
I've got a few as always. So first of all, one of the thoughts I had is remember when you're getting pushback from somebody who's, maybe a generation behind you that is also feeling this change. Remember that they also are getting pushback from, if it goes back, 7 generations, they're also getting pushback from the generation before them, who's getting pushback from the generation before them. And once again, this is not to excuse it or, whatever it may be, but it is maybe you can have a little bit of compassion. And also the flip side, this pattern may not have started with you. This energy may not have started with you, but it also may not have started with them either. And it may not have started with, their grandparents or great grandparents. Who knows how far back some of these things go. So it could give us compassion for what they're experiencing. Also another thought, when you get pushback or criticism or, fighting on the energy, whatever it may be, remember that often it's not personal.
Yes.
This is about, cognitive dissonance is a good word, or phrase, I should say. Cognitive dissonance actually isn't about you. Cognitive dissonance is, in order to update my beliefs and see the truth, what excuse or limiting belief do I have to give up? If you're going to run a marathon, and I've always said all the time, oh, I can't run a marathon. I've always wanted to, but I can't do it. It's just not possible for me. And then you do it. I have to admit that all along I could have done it too.
Yes.
And that's not something I want to admit. So, don't take it personally. Recognize they've got their thing, you've got your thing. And then also with the not taking it personally, recognize, we're all connected. We can't help that. But you can cut ties, cut cords, whatever it may be. If you've got somebody who's absolutely insisting, every time you clear something, and then they decide, nope, I want that back. It's familiar. I'm scared I don't know how to live without it. I'm going to reinstall it, and I'm going to reinstall it in me, and I'm going to reinstall it in you. Just know that you have the ability to say, okay, you have the right to live your life. I have the right to live my life. But on this particular thing, we're cutting the cord. You're not allowed just to send that energy back down to me anymore. Yep. When I clear it, it's going to be gone. If you don't want to clear it too, keep it in your generation with just you, and you can do what you want with it when you're ready. But you don't have the right to impact me anymore. And part of that also is you don't have to share your journey with just anybody. It's your journey, and you have the right to say, you know what? You get to see this chapter, but you don't get to see this chapter. That's not lying. That's being private. That's being protective. That's honoring the energy, and you're allowed to do that. And then also just keep in mind, you think about, so Lillian Bridges talked a lot about, that phrase, a prophet is never welcome in his own country. Sometimes it's really hard for somebody to say, I'm going to take feedback from you, and I'm going to recognize that you have wisdom to give me, but I used to change your diapers. It's just a disconnect that sometimes it can be hard for all of us. And on the flip side, when it's somebody who maybe you used to change their diapers, can you see them for who they are, and can you recognize it's okay for me to take influence from this person, even if maybe they're a lot younger, maybe they used to be dependent on me. So it's a chance for us to say, maybe somebody doesn't want to accept my influence, but when it's right, will I accept their influence? And then just one other thing, I know a lot, but so I think I mentioned I watch a lot of NDE experiences. For those who don't know, NDE stands for near-death experience. And one person was talking about they got to see a group of souls, spirits, whatever you want to call them, that were called the chain breakers. And the whole point was these were strong spirits that were sent down into families where patterns of energy were starting to, perpetuate after generation, and they were strong enough to end the cycle. But one of the things that they noticed is, these were very strong individuals that were asked to do this. But when they got into life, all they have to do is end the cycle, and they've basically already fulfilled their life to a certain extent. Everything else they do is extra credit. But they didn't realize that, and they'd often look at it and say, I didn't end it perfectly. Oh, I got a little angry one day because, all of this pressure was on me. Oh, I wasn't the nicest person. I wasn't, And what they don't see is what they've accomplished is so huge and so big. Yeah, so you had an off day. So what? You ended a cycle. And so, anyway, I'm sure it happens at different levels, but if you manage to end a cycle, don't be too hard on yourself. It's, a lot harder than it looks, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to happen. So, anyway, thanks.
And we got Miss Fran on here. And yes, thank you for letting us know. Girl, I'll take 2 minutes of your face, of your presence, of your energy, of your smile. Thank you for thinking about us. We missed the little bejesus out of you, so
I'm so glad I got to hear Holly's words.
yeah.
You always have such wisdom, Holly. I love hearing what you have to say. Thank you.
Well spoken on all of our behalf. And that's why we miss you, because we love hearing your stuff too. Right now we're on the topic of lineage breakers. And had the opportunity to work with quite a number of people that were able to break generational lineage issues. So, and Holly, when you brought up that part about having souls come down, strong ones, for that exact reason, yeah, yep. And I've got a feeling I've worked with a couple of them, because when we got in there, you look back and when did this energy start? Well, it didn't start with me. It went through, it's 10, 20 generations back. And it wasn't easy work, but we went in and knocked it out. So, any other ahas, epiphanies, inputs? Or maybe I can start up the next topic and get a comment from Fran before she's got to run. The next topic is Blackout, and this one came from one of my clients who has a dear friend who has issues with alcohol, and every now and then will drink to the point of absolute blackout. And my friend or my client had to go over there, didn't have to, but we do what we do. And their friend was, completely trashed. Vodka is the one that absolute takes them out. And my friend or my client said, who's still running the boat? Who's still running the bus when they're in their blackout stage? Because they noticed that the person who was that drunk spoke very kindly to them. They were very bipolar, they were very volatile, but they said some of the sweetest things to my client. Things that are normally out of their nature. And so one theory I had was the vodka put the gatekeeper to sleep. And the person that the gatekeeper was also the one in charge of all the recordings. And the gatekeeper saw this coming in as a threat. we're in trouble, we've consumed too much, and almost like reaching that threshold of when people are in accidents or something, and that critical part gets encapsulated, but they put it away because there's too much in it. And this happened just last week, and the person who blacked out did not remember anything from Monday until Wednesday. They had placed phone calls, they had sent texts, they had contacted exes and all sorts of people, and had threatened to kill themselves, all the above. And so again, my client is like, what happens in there? And of course, I can't answer all of the above, but I wanted to bring it up here as a way, a platform. See what you guys had to say. What are your thoughts?
I wish I had more time to. I've really
Yeah.
got to go.
Yes.
But I love what you've said. This is all such powerful, powerful stuff. I think there's about three aspects. One is that people use drugs and alcohol very often to avoid the pain, and it's self-medication to stop the hurt. And the hurt is the gatekeeper that stops the kind stuff coming out. And there are people who are, other people may not agree, but I think there's a chemical addiction for some people, which is different from the blackout, though it often leads to blackout, but I think it's different to the drinking to stop the pain. Yeah. So having thrown the cat in the ring, I've got to go. I'll see you. Bye.
Thank you, dear. Love you. Yes, and I think she was definitely onto something there. A lot of times that level of drinking is of course to medicate, numb, cover up, whatever you want to call it. But I've also seen people who go into blackout rage. They will get so angry at something, that they just lose control. They don't remember what they said. They'll get into fights, have no idea when they come out of it what the heck happened. And it doesn't even have to include alcohol. And with a few of them that I've worked with, it also came back to generational anger. And so part of my theory or my question to you guys, is this something that was handed down? Is this something that is picked up environmentally, generationally? Obviously, vets, the military, stuff like that, that's another situation when you've been put into situations that humans should not have to be exposed to or endure. Have any of you dealt with any or experienced or all the Holly?
So this may be wrong, but who knows? But this is just kind of from my experiences of, regressing people to cause, so to speak. Um, so first of all, where does it come from is kind of a very interesting question, and I seem to find a combination of answers. So, when we're in this life, first of all, and this kind of gets to a question that was in the chat earlier too, but if our soul has incarnated multiple times, I do, and even if you don't believe in reincarnation, take this with a grain of salt. You can think about it metaphorically, whatever. I happen to believe it for real, but that's fine if you don't. But I believe our spirit brings in a certain amount of energy from what happened before, and who knows? It might be 5 lifetimes ago. Maybe you were a wife of an abusive husband, and you never could stand up for yourself, and you still got a residual of that because it's never been cleaned out. You also have, as we were talking about, your physical body has a history and a genetic history. And maybe it's something that goes back 5 generations, and, some of it's nurture, some of it's nature, but some of it's energetics, whatever it may be. But another factor that I think people don't realize how much it affects you is, you mentioned environment, but also like diet, anything you bring into your body. So they say if you have an organ transplant, you may actually get a lot of what, the person who had that organ before, if they had a lot of rage, you might suddenly find yourself raging more frequently. If they were really calm and you rage, maybe you'll suddenly be calmer. But I think that also applies to, if you eat food of an animal that was terrified before it died, that might impact, you might get a little bit of that impact in your food versus one that died in a more humane way. So, I think that the idea that it just comes, sometimes we get into this idea that it's got to come from just one place. And it's a combination of all of these. But I also believe that all of us have, well, especially in this world, we have a toolkit of ways to handle it. But we have a choice off. And once again, that doesn't mean you always had a toolkit. Maybe there was a time in your past where you did the best you could with the resources you had, the understanding you had, and that's fine. But once you have the toolkit, so first of all, I think that a lot of it comes from, do you hide from what you're afraid of, or do you face it? And a lot of times, if you're spending all your time hiding, I must have seen this in a movie somewhere, maybe it was Monsters, Inc. or something, but the idea that if you're seeing the shadow of the monster on the wall, you may think it's this huge monster, and you're terrified, and you're always hiding from it. But as soon as you turn to face it, it might be the tiniest thing ever. It's just that it had this projected shadow that looked huge.
Yep.
So, there's so many things in our lives that I think when we choose to hide from them, they become stronger, they become bigger. And sometimes we feel like we have to dissociate because we think it's so big. Another thing that comes to mind, where was I? I was talking to some women, and we were talking about, being still, going out, sitting in nature, and journaling. And the first thing they said is, I could never do that because I'm terrified to meet myself. And if I met myself, I might hate myself. And that just, first of all, it broke my heart because it was somebody that I knew. And I'm like, I may not have known them well, but I'd known them for the, duration of time that I'd met them, and they were amazing. And, the first thing that came out of my mouth is, yeah, but what if you met yourself and you actually discovered you're amazing? I think a lot of this, maybe some people, they got a drink to being blackout drunk, but maybe somebody else, my big thing might be, oh, I gotta, watch a TV show. Or maybe, what is your dissociation of choice? And at what level do you need, am I going to feel it? Am I going, when I was in physical therapy, my physical therapist would always say, be curious about the pain, lean into the pain. Because once you get curious about it and you lean into it, it melts away. It's only when you're resisting it and fighting it and ignoring it that it gets worse. And so, anyway, so a lot of this, I think, like I said, the source may come from this lifetime. It may come from choices. It may come from karma. It may come from, residual energy that needs to be cleaned up, whatever it may be. But it may come from genetics. It may come from medical conditions. There's so many different places that it can come from. But there's also so many places that the solutions can come from as well.
Yes.
And are you the kind of person who's willing to face it and who's willing to feel it and who's willing to lean into it? Or are you the kind of person that's going to hide from it and that's going to ignore it and let it get bigger? And once again, as soon as you decide to hide it, how you hide is up to you. Maybe it's drinking, maybe it's whatever. And once again, oh, and then there's one other thing too. When it comes to our boundaries, most of us start out, it's our first try. It's our first try. We get them wrong, so we may tweak certain parts up too high so they keep the good stuff out and they keep the good stuff in. But other areas are not strong enough. And so I think some people, when they have these, I'm terrified, so I'm going to have this boundary that I'm never allowed to say, nice things to other people because they might take advantage of my goodness, whatever it may be. When you get yourself, instead of saying, I'm going to update my boundaries, I'm going to tweak them, I'm going to get them to be healthy so that I can express good things, I can let good things in, but I can still say no when somebody's doing something that shouldn't happen. Instead they say, nope, I'm going to put that wall all the way up, but then it's going to feel awful that it's all the way up, and I feel so lonely, and I know I'm missing something. And so whether I'm going to binge eat food, or I'm going to drink, or I'm going to whatever is your drug of choice, once you do that, it does numb you, it does drop your boundaries, but it drops both boundaries. It drops the boundaries that keep you safe, and it drops the boundaries that maybe you weren't letting the good stuff in too. So you could do it that way, sure. You let both things in, and then when you're not in that state, you keep both things out. Or you could sit down and actually work on your boundaries and find something a little bit healthier and install it.
You amaze me. Thank you for being on here. Wow. Okay. Anybody else before Mark?
I just something tangential, squirrely. There's been studies done where they got people deliberately drunk and then taught them something. And then when they sobered up, they couldn't remember how to do it. And then when they got them drunk again, they knew how to do it. So it was called state-dependent learning. And it was a behavioral experiment. And, I can't disagree with anything that Holly said. I also believe in just about everything she said, probably everything she said. And, but I do know that, people drink for a multitude of different reasons, but it's usually because there's something they just don't want to think about. And alcohol goes through the blood-brain barrier and anesthetizes the cognitive mind. And that's why they drink a lot of times, because they don't want to think. And when you've got the conscious mind, the subconscious, the emotional mind, and then the reptile brain, or the instincts, and you listen to how drunks talk, and it's like, they can't stand, but yeah, just get me behind the wheel, I'll be fine. Is that a rational statement? No, the rational mind has shut down. It's been numbed, anesthetized. So they make very irrational, illogical, and unreasonable things, and if you're driving the bus and the only thing driving the bus is your inner child, your 5-year-old, and he's got his pet lizard with him, the reptile brain, nothing bad could happen if you let a 5-year-old drive the bus.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got his pet lizard there for advice,
Yeah.
fight, flight, feed, the fourth F. And we tend to not, again, if the conscious mind is offline, maybe memory is impacted. We can only remember a certain percentage of, what we've experienced anyways. But, if we engage in certain things when we are, when that part of our brain is anesthetized, it's very likely that it doesn't want to remember. So, they would defer to, oh, I don't remember, but it could be, partially, it could be the phenomena, like I said, state-dependent learning, state-dependent, behavior, to broaden the concept. So, if someone's having periods of blackout, again, you guys, you can do regression therapy, and you can get back in there and find out what the blocks are to their, being able to remember. So, but yeah, that's my understanding of how, and I work with police officers, and I say, you can't be rational with them. You can't, sir, I'm sorry, you seem to be inebriated. Your hand-eye coordination's off, your speech is slurring. We're going to have to do a blood alcohol test to determine whether or not you have exceeded the limit, the lawful limit for inebriation. And no, you just talk to them. You've been bad. Go over there, sit down, breathe in that. Like you're talking to a 5-year-old, and they're like, "You're absolutely right. You can't be rational with a drunk because they're not rational, And all you're going to do is aggravate and irritate that inner child when you're using big words." So they confirm my observation, But as far as blacking out, well, like I said, the mind hides a lot of stuff from itself, most of all.
And Renee put in a good comment as well, where she said, "My thoughts, a blackout altered state may leave a person open and vulnerable to whatever entities, energies, or forces align with the emotional state that they entered the blackout state in, allowing these forces the ability to pull that person's strings." And I kind of agree with that as well. I've been able to get a few clients into finding out what was going on. And a lot of times it had nothing to do with the timeline, the week, the month that they were in. It fed back to much earlier wounds that they hadn't known how to properly deal with. And so again, the event reaches critical mass, and the subconscious goes, "Yeah, I think we're going to check out." Beep. And they're running on autopilot. We got 2 minutes left. Elijah.
So I hear a lot of talk about pain in this topic. I think that type of behavior is most likely an attempt to cover up some sort of pain or to... Anyway, there is another quote that I had, and I tried to put it in the chat like I do, but it was too long, so I'm just going to read it to you. It goes, "Perhaps the greatest faculty of our mind possesses is its ability to cope with pain. Classic thinking teaches us that there are 4 doorways of the mind, which everyone moves through according to their needs. First is the door of sleep. Sleep offers us a retreat from the world and all its pain. Sleep marks passing time, giving us distance from the things that have hurt us. When a person is wounded, they will often fall unconscious. Similarly, when someone hears traumatic news, they may swoon or faint. This is the mind's way of protecting itself from pain by stepping through the first door. Second is the door of forgetting. Some wounds are too deep to heal, or at least too deep to heal quickly. And in addition, many memories are just simply painful and there is no healing to be done. The saying that time heals all wounds is false. Time heals most wounds. The rest lie behind this second door. Third is the door of madness. There are times when the mind is dealt such a blow that it hides itself in insanity. While this may not seem beneficial, it is. There are times when reality is nothing but pain, and the only way to escape that pain, the mind must leave reality behind. Last is the door of death, our final resort. Nothing can harm us after we are dead. or at least so we have been told, right? Now, when I think of somebody drinking themselves silly, I think it's just someone attempting to use a tool to accelerate getting to one of these doorways so that they don't have to think about the thing that they can't stop themselves from thinking about because it's constantly eating away at them. And, like Holly said, they might not know that there are tools available and there are ways to combat it and fight it and things like that. But it's something that everybody goes through, even us experts. I can guarantee all the so-called experts here have gone through similar sorts of things, right? And it's part of the experience. The pendulum swings both ways. The more pain you've experienced, the stronger pleasure you'll be able to experience also. So, yeah, just some thoughts. I know it wasn't really useful or had any kind of technique or strategy in there, but just reminded me of that passage and I wanted to share it.
No, it was right in line with what we're talking about. Yes, there are so many things so many moving parts in these actions, these activities, that there isn't one set solution. There isn't one set answer. But I always want to try and help people find those. That's what I do. I just want to help make people's lives better. So we're just past the top of the hour. We can keep going on with this if you guys want, but for those of you that are watching for the very first time, we are now moving into hour 2, where it's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can ask a question, bring up a topic, and now I will sit back. Greg had his hand up, and like I said, we can continue with this conversation. We can continue with this topic, and then anybody else can bring it up. So talk to me, Greg.
Just a question. Is it possible that some people drink, do drugs, ingest certain things that cause a shift in, I don't know, not reality, but I guess the question is there always a problem involved with somebody who is judged for drinking excessively or using drugs excessively? People who would, live a good life, are happy and established and, paying attention, could be spiritual, could be conscious, have a sense of awareness. They just enjoy getting high because it feels good. And in that state, perhaps they can become even more creative, right? It could trigger a creativity with oneself, give them motivation. So it seems like the conversation is that if you do shift your consciousness level while using some substance, that it's necessarily a bad thing. Is it possible that people can get high every day of their lives or many days of their lives and still function well and be creative and be a good citizen and a good a mother or father or a worker or whatever? Does it always have to be negative?
Great question. Lenora's got her hand up.
I think it depends on what are you wanting? What are you intending? What is your outcome? If you're using it for your own reasons, those are your own values, those are your own criteria, it is entirely up to you. And if you feel like or you, or not anybody, you specifically, but I know there's quite a chat thread. So when you said Greg, TJ, I thought you meant Greg in the chat. And then I realized, so we have like two very similar conversations going on. There are a few questions in the chat, which I know Holly was chiming in on. But that being said, ultimately, I think it goes back to, are you getting the outcome you want? What's important to you about it? And if we can find ways to suspend our own self-judgment about, I should be doing this, or I shouldn't be doing that, or it should be this way, it shouldn't be that way. If we could find ways to suspend our own self-judgment, and we can find ways to suspend our own worrying, and just even if we compartmentalize it and say, okay, this is what I'm doing for the next 5 hours, this is what I'm doing for the next 2 hours, whatever it is, and allow yourself to enjoy it, allow yourself to explore it, allow yourself to lean into it, how differently we might actually start to experience our lives. And that to me is just it. And every time I stop to pause and think about it, if I wasn't judging myself, or if I wasn't worried about this, wow, that just it just blows me away every single time. So in this case, if somebody's using it for whatever reason it is, I think ultimately, if you're finding ways to not get behind the wheel, not put somebody else's life at risk, I would say we're probably headed in the better direction in that case.
It could even be motivated by somebody getting into that state of wanting to be better, wanting to be to share themselves, wanting to put themselves in places where they can have a more a stronger connection with spirit, God, source, right? They could find that by ingesting certain things that they can get out of their alter ego into this higher place of who they, closer to who they really are. And maybe that's part of the lure, is getting to that place where, wow, it feels good here, right? I can turn and look at my pseudo self, my alter ego over there, and go, oh, okay, he does that or she does that, and that's okay. I did the best that I did, and I do the best I can with what I got every moment. So that ability, and personal experience, the few times I've done mushrooms, the clarity that I got and the ability to be in that place where I could look at myself from my higher self, right? It was so wonderful because I could then look at myself and go, oh, wow, what a dumbass I was at certain points. What stupid decisions I made, and look at the outcome that happened, but without the judgment.
Yes.
Which is wonderful. I mean, this is really important. Like if you can look at yourself and see where you, I don't even want to say messed up, but you made certain choices that didn't give long-term satisfying consequences. If you can do that and go, oh, I did the best I could. Now I can use that experience to make better choices, better decisions without beating myself up again. You know, that's the place I've gotten to. I can look at myself because I know we're all the same. We're all dumbasses. We were from birth, we were conditioned so poorly. We're all walking around badly programmed and blaming ourselves personally for it. We're doing the best we can all the time. So to get that place where you can look at that and go, yeah, I'm a dumbass like everybody else, but I'm trying really hard. I want to get more expansive. I want to heal, and I want to share my experience with other people so they can do the same thing. So that's some of the experience that I've had with drugs. I find it very freeing, very motivational. I get really creative at night. I don't do anything during the day, but in the evening, most evenings, I ingest a little of this, a little of that, and I'm like, let's go. Let's put on some music, get out my tools. I can work on my stereo equipment. I can work on one of my vehicles out in the driveway. I can do some gardening. I can exercise. I can sit and look at the stars and listen to the birds chirp. It's like I get going, and I don't, besides the expense, it can be a little costly. Um, but it doesn't affect my health. I don't take any meds. My health is really good. I have lots of endurance and stamina. So it's like it feels good to me. I don't see it. I don't go, oh, I'm high again. Oh, I'm so miserable. And I don't get mean. I just get funny and gregarious. And I like to talk to people and joke around. Some people get like they go into another personality, right?
Yes.
It's like, wow, who the hell is this cycle that just came out? You know, I like to have fun. I like to laugh, and I like to feel less encumbered by the ego judging who I am. So anyway, I don't know if any of you guys have experience like this where you do certain things and society looks at it like, oh, that's bad or wrong and it's not good for you, blah blah blah. I don't. I maybe I used to before I did a lot of work on myself. I would probably drink and imbibe and something to not have to look at myself. But it's very different now. So maybe some of you guys had that similar experience or know somebody who has.
Holly's got her hand up.
Oh, good.
Love this topic. So the first thing that popped into my head when you said that is, that old saying, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heaven. And I think there's a lot of things we as human beings don't understand, but sometimes we don't like to admit we don't understand it. And the number of substances that, 100 years ago we thought was the best thing ever, and now we think is the worst thing ever, and things that we thought were the worst thing ever that now we think is the best thing ever. Science is always changing its mind about what it thinks is good, what it thinks is bad. In order to survive, we have to actually take substances, into our body, and it may vary what we think is healthy and what we think is not healthy. But my rule has always been on this sort of thing is trust your gut. Your gut will tell you if this is healthy or not. The one word I did pick up on though was the word excessive. I think anything could be used excessively. And there's a difference between, okay, I took this and I discovered things that were truth. I discovered things that helped me be a better person, that helped me, have better boundaries, that helped me be more loving, that helped me heal. I think that if that's the results, there's also a saying, by their fruits you shall know them. If that's the result you're getting, I think you have your answer. But if your result is, I hid more from this and I turned into a jerk and I made myself unhealthy, and once again, this could be something that everybody maybe when you eat tomatoes, you rage out of your mind because that's just how because, we're all individuals and maybe it just hits you chemically just the wrong way. So also another thought I had too is sometimes a suboptimal solution is still better than no solution. So yes, if you can find a better solution, always go with the best solution you can find, the healthiest, the most balanced, the one that makes you the best version of yourself. But if all you've got is a suboptimal solution, don't say, oh, it's not perfect. That means I can't use it, Also, something that this phrase just came into my mind, when you're using something with judgment and skill, there's probably a lot of things out there that have really good uses. They just need to be used with judgment and skill. And skill comes from practice. Judgment comes from practice. But also just another thought I had, this is something I've thought about dopamine a lot. Dopamine has kind of this, curve to it. There's an optimal place where we're at the peak of functioning. And what happens is dopamine can be very addictive. And so when we engage in dopamine, and this could apply to other things too, but dopamine just jumped into my mind. The temptation is when we engage in dopamine activities is to take it too far and to take ourselves past the peak performing place. And that could be unhealthy. That's when it becomes excessive. That's when instead of getting benefit, we're hiding, we're numbing, we're whatever it may be. But the problem is sometimes we get so caught up in the fact that we could take it too far that we don't want to take our dopamine far enough. And we actually stop before the peak, well before we're functioning, because we're so afraid of going too far. And so I think all things are done, it's all about balance. Do you feel balanced? Do you feel grounded? Do you feel like you're growing? And I think, once again, it just comes back to trust your gut. Ask your gut. Am I genuinely doing this because it's making me a better person? Or am I doing this because I'm trying to hide from something and I'm making excuses, and this is just the excuse I'm trying to use to do something that I know is unhealthy. And your gut will always tell you the truth.
Good points. Really good points.
Good stuff. Elijah's got his hand up as well.
Oh, I was going to lower it because the point's kind of already been made and it's probably moot. But yeah, I was going to say, like I have no problem with people getting high or drinking. That's not what I was getting at earlier. I was more speaking about when they are doing it to cover something up or to forget something or to gain distance from something or using it as a crutch. Or, more specifically, if they ever had a thought that, that I'm not in control when I'm doing this or something like that. And that's when it becomes a problem. And that's when I would, offer some sort of assistance. But the actual act of using a substance to achieve an altered state is, like, let me direct your attention to all the coffee drinkers in the world.
Yes.
Morning, right? It is no different. The people who get their little sugar rush in the evening after they've had their meal, they want something sweet, a bit of dessert or something. It's no different. It's just a stimulus. And sugar actually is probably more dangerous than any of the substances we've been talking about. It's like insane, right? And so really what I was saying about the whole control or feeling like you're not in control is it's one of the more complicated things that we as coaches have to deal with, because when it comes to things like addiction, right? Addiction is a very special case in when it comes to like the kind of coaching and therapy that I do. A lot of it is based around collapsing anchors, right? So you would use a positive state to collapse a negative state, right? And neutralize it. And, when the thing is fear, or when it's anxiety, or when it's, sadness or loneliness, and like all of those kinesthetics are negative. But the thing about being high or having a buzz is that it's a positive feeling. People like being high. People like having a buzz. And so it's very difficult sometimes for a lot of therapists out there to get that collapse, because you're trying to collapse one positive state with another positive state, and it doesn't really work. And so you have to get a little bit creative when you're working with addiction, when you're working with this kind of thing. And I just wanted to kind of throw that out as well, that we do recognize that it is a slightly more complicated thing. Not only is it complicated in the side that we're dealing with, but then on top of all that, you've got the actual biochemical changes in the physiology of the person that happen alongside with it. And so it's like a double battle in a way. But the help is there, the technology, the knowledge is there, and it is totally fixable if, and it comes down to this, if it is something that somebody wants to change, right? If they don't want to change, if they enjoy being high and they enjoy getting a buzz on and stuff, like, I'm fine with it. Like, it's not my business. Do you know what I mean? You do you. And so, yeah, just wanted to kind of throw that in there.
And just interject, as long as people don't get malicious, they don't cause harm, as you or Holly mentioned, don't cause bodily harm or harm to their possessions. As long as you don't start hitting people and screaming and casting blame out at others. Alcohol, for one thing, is a very strong central nervous system depressant, and it allows one to be more, I don't want to say honest, but to express themselves sometimes when otherwise they wouldn't, right? So, I pay very close attention to what's going on inside my head, what I think, what I speak, what I do. And I've never been, I used to be an angry young man, but that was in my teen years, in my 20s, when I didn't understand what the heck was going on, and I was angry. Um, but yeah, as long as somebody uses what they're doing, no matter what it is, it could be like, you just want to have a lot of sex, or you like to run a lot, or doing something that gives you that stimulus, right? As you spoke of. As long as they do it consciously, right? Like, what am I doing right now? Why am I doing it? Is it selfish? Am I affecting other people negatively? Am I taking something from somebody else? Do I have an expectation now of somebody else doing something good for me? Perhaps something that I think I can't, or maybe no, I can't do for myself. Don't get angry, or if you do get angry, look at that. If you get high and you get angry, and your frustration comes out and magnifies that stuff that's in you, and you keep it quiet until you get that buzz on, and you're like, oh, I can talk about this now. And we know people who do that. I have a couple of people I know who do that. So it's just, I guess, in all things, be conscious of who you're being. Right? Is this for the benefit of everybody involved with you? Or is this like totally selfish? Am I doing this because I want to get away from things? Or I don't want to face myself. I don't like somebody else, so I'm going to get so toasted that being around them isn't going to bother me as much, that kind of thing. So with everything, be courageously conscious, courageously aware of what you're doing and how you're thinking, and then be willing to make those changes. That's like the next step, right? Make some changes, right? So anyway, good conversation.
Yeah. And when Elijah was talking, two of my squirrels were just freaking out. One of them reminded me of a comedian skit, and I think it was Robin Williams, when he said, "Yeah, and your parents are going. There's your father. Your mother and I never did drugs, and he's on pack number 6 of cigarettes, and he's downing his 8th pot of coffee. Ain't that right, hon?" And mom's over there blasted on antidepressants and muscle relaxants, going, "Yes, dear, whatever."
Yep.
There was a great bit. I don't know if you guys know Bill Hicks. He did a great bit about smokers and non-smokers. And if you feel like having a laugh, YouTube Bill Hicks non-smokers. It's a very good little 6-7 minute bit stand-up comedy. Very funny.
Cool. And I'll be with you in just a bit, Mark, but my pops went through treatment for alcoholism when I was 12, and it cracked me up going down there, because he did a treatment at a place, and so we drove down. We go there, and holy cow, the room was just blue with smoke. And they would have like 4 or 5 big coffee pots running, and a popcorn machine. And these guys are down there, and like I say, yeah, they're lighting one cigarette off of the butt of the other one and drinking coffee, and they're just, "Yes, I'm feeling much better. I don't drink anymore."
They just switched addictions.
Yeah. And God bless AA for all the people that it helped.
Mm-hmm.
But it also bothered me, the people that slipped through the cracks, because they took away the Band-Aid, they took away the medicine, but didn't address the source of the problem.
Yeah.
And I've had a number of clients who had gone through treatment a couple of times. And they were so hard on themselves, but it just didn't work. I'm not strong enough. Da, 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 da. And when we finally got in and got down to the source, that's when the change was made. Because they didn't know why they were drinking. They just knew that they were drawn to it. And one other thing, sorry for the wait, Mark, but another one that came up was personality disorders. And a lot of times you see people like, I spent a year in Europe traveling around, and some of the places I went, they can drink. Woo, can they drink? But they work their butts off. It was in that area, it was acceptable to drink. It was not acceptable to be out of control and not show up to work.
Yes.
So, yeah, go out and drink all you want. Don't be stupid. Don't drive drunk. Don't be late for work. And so they had a personality that could drink. And one of the things that from when Pops was in treatment, they asked the question, if you have a person that drinks 3-4 beers every night their entire life, every day, every night, they got to have, they drink 3, 4, 5 beers or have a couple of drinks every night. And then you have a person who only drinks 1 day a year. Which one is the alcoholic? And it was a trick question. And their answer was, it depends on why they're drinking and whether or not they can go without it without worrying about it. If the person who drinks every night does it because that's their refreshment of choice,
Yeah.
and they enjoy it, but if they run out, they're not driving to the liquor store at 10 o'clock at night because they don't have any. However, if you've got the person that only drinks 1 day a year, and when that day starts coming up and they're letting everybody know, my drinking day is coming up and you will not mess with me. Nobody's coming over. You're not going to bother me. I'm going to get this and it's going to happen and nobody's going to stop me. Well, you might have a little issue. We may have to talk about it. Mark.
Oh boy, so much.
Squirrels everywhere. Whee!
I got a scurry of squirrels in my head. Well, start off, TJ, that's what's called symptom substitution. You get people indulging their, the nicotine and caffeine habit, to get them away from the alcohol habit. That's AA always has a big pot of coffee and everybody's jumping out for a smoke.
Yep.
But we're all addicts to our brain chemicals, whether it be adrenaline when we're young men, dopamine, Holly mentioned, serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and oxytocin. Greg, the ancient Greeks had a saying, all things in moderation.
Yes.
Yeah, and to finish something that Elijah said was people do things for only 2 reasons, which we might have both gotten from the same source, Dr. David, to gain pleasure and to avoid pain. And that runs through all the topics tonight. But yeah, the use of a mind-altering substance Everybody get their tinfoil hat on for this next little piece. The psilocybin that our ancestors ingested because they were eating a lot of scat as they were hunter-gatherers, they ingested a fair amount of psilocybin. And one fella on YouTube had a theory that's how we evolved to the next level, because after engaging in that disassociation, that 30,000-foot view often enough, that because most animals live in the moment, but if you're if you're eating a lot of mushrooms, you're gonna get to that 30,000-foot mark and be able to look down on yourself. So maybe that was the path of the human mind and then they turned it into, an instinct, a change in the biochemistry so that we could, disassociate at will and, get that, not only that worm's eye view, but that eagle's eye view. And I thought what the guy had to say on the YouTube video there was some meat on that bone. But to buy into the fact that we evolved because all our ancestors were doing psilocybin, yeah, that's tinfoil hat time.
Or a mushroom cap thing.
There you go.
Look at it.
Mhm.
What was that joke? How to tell a mushroom from whatever the poisonous one is, a toadstool, by the late Dr. Um, Mark Donaghy.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, I'm done.
What were the two things you said people want? Avoid pain, and what else was it, Mark?
To gain pleasure and to avoid pain. That's the two things why people do anything, everything. Great. According to Dr. Snyder.
That's interesting. I came up with a similar version of that a couple of years ago. That I think the two things, and they're similar. I think is that what people want is comfort and stimulation, and it could all be just comfort. Even stimulation could be comfort too, right? We all want to be stimulated, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, right? We want stimulation. And even greater than that is the comfort aspect. I mean, don't we all want to be comfortable within ourselves, with our friends, with our family, with our bosses, with our wives and husbands, workmates, comfortable with society, comfortable with nature? Don't we? Isn't that, when you really think about it, it's like that's what I seek, comfort. That's why I have different environments in my home, that if I get a little, done with one thing and I want to do something else, more stimulation, I'll seek a different area of my home. I'll go sit in the hot tub. I'll listen to some music on a different sound system. I'll go ride my bike or whatever. So, and that's not a selfish thing, right? Being comfortable, because when you're comfortable, really comfortable in your environment, your physical environment, and comfortable in your own head, where you're not afraid of yourself anymore. Wow. So I look around and I look, yeah, even if people are doing it in ways that aren't really satisfying, or perhaps there could be hurting somebody else in some way, but they still want that comfort. Even the homeless guy on sitting next to the roadside with his Vaughn's cart, he's trying to be as comfortable as he can. He's going to buy the food that he can with the money he panhandled, or maybe the tall beer or two that he bought, or the sleeping bag that he just acquired. He's seeking comfort as well.
And I think that's where you see some of the people that have all the money, all the means, and they can't reach that comfort level anymore.
Right? Yep.
There's everything is at their and they don't know how to handle it.
I think that's a lot of that is it's outwardly directed, right? They're believing other people who are saying, "Oh, yes, get another house. You only have 7. Get the 8th house.
Yes, that'll make me happy.
Get the longer, a bigger yacht. Get the bigger diamond. Get the better clothes. Another car, whatever, right?"
Yep.
I guess it really comes down to being comfortable within yourself. I think that's the most important thing.
Yes.
Comfortable with who you are. And not that you're ever seeking perfection, because that's impossible. It's not doable. But within the challenges within ourselves, based on our social conditioning, whatever, find some comfort in that. That's
Yes.
really important. Then less judgment of self, more of an ability to move forward, more an ability to open your horizons a little bit and go, wow, maybe I should, open my focus a little bit more and look at myself in different ways and try some new things and talk to some people and watch some different videos, read some different books or whatever. Have a willingness to expand yourself,
Yes.
but too. So
And the other thing Renee pointed out, everyone responds to substances differently.
yes.
She put in, she knew a guy in school who would hallucinate after drinking diet soda.
Right?
Yeah. I dated a lady that ibuprofen put her out. I mean, out,
Yeah.
sound asleep.
Hmm.
And, Guillermo put in a good comment that, he had a boss that would let him work, you bust your rump, you work hard, and afterwards you got to have a drink. And I grew up the same way.
Hmm.
When I was a kid in the summertime baling hay, that is a hot, nasty, heavy, hard work job.
Hmm.
But if you're old enough to be out there working with the adults and busting rump and tossing bales, they'd let you have a beer. And nowadays people would be like, "Oh, what do you want?" But they made it very clear. You don't get to go into the cooler and get stupid.
Hmm.
But if you work like an adult and you can handle it like an adult and you can be responsible with it, you can join us for a reward afterwards.
Yeah.
One of the best things I was taught as a kid was you will be treated the age you act, not the age on your birth certificate.
Hmm.
And that encompassed all that stuff. And Holly's got her hand up.
Ugh. I think it's gosh, who was it that said that when you keep coming to the same conclusions from different sources, there must be something in it. I'm loving this comfort. So another system calls it safety and novelty.
Yes.
And out in order to really enjoy novelty, you first need safety. But if you can have good safety and you just go too deep into the safety and you never have novelty, that can also be unhealthy for you. Um, but another system would be Jordan Peterson talks about chaos and order.
Mhm.
And he says, if you really want to be in the place where you're doing the best, you always need to live on the edge of both. So if you have, and chaos and order are, archetypal terms, but you might think of it too a little bit as, if you want, if you want to be creative, you have to allow a certain amount of chaos in your life. But at the same
Sure.
time, to have a little bit of order, you need to have a little bit of discipline.
Hmm.
Otherwise, there's going to be nowhere, the discipline creates space for you to be creative.
Absolutely.
And, so that support, that safety, whatever it is, that discipline on the one side, it's very, very helpful. You need it and you need to be honest. I think this once again gets into how can, there's fake safety and there's real safety. And if I'm honest and I actually go into, what are the real risks? What is the real pain? What really needs to be healed? Going back to substances, if I'm honest with myself about what substances actually help me be more responsible, help me be a better person, not just what substances, but what habits make me do that? What thoughts do I have? Do I constantly beat myself up and that turns me into a nasty human being? Or, Do I tell myself true things that are good about myself that builds up my actual confidence, or do I blow fluff up my whatever, smoke up my, basically telling myself things that aren't true because I just want to feel good about myself. I think that true safety allows true creativity, but false safety sometimes has us go into what we think is creativity, but it's not really creativity. So yeah, these two things, don't ever lean too much into one or the other. Both are valuable. Once you get everything, it all comes back down to balance. But also, I think there's a counterfeit version of everything, and there's a true version of everything. And when you lean into the true version, you'll know it because you'll feel it, you'll see it, you'll sense it, and I think that could be really cool.
That's a good point about the safety aspect. Yeah, it's very challenging to be creative when you're not feeling at least somewhat safe, even mentally. I'm gonna do this thing like you guys were talking about earlier. I'm gonna do this thing, but thinking that other people will judge you and poo-poo it, and from their own fears, right? Then you have a sense of less than safe because the people that you love and love you are judging you now. So how am I going to be creative here, fully creative, when I'm feeling just the least bit safe? And it's challenging to, in spite of all that, to move forward anyway and like create your own safety. We oftentimes rely on other people and how they're being and acting and speaking before we do feel safe. So safety is available, but in any case, very, very, very important to have that. Yeah.
All sorts of good stuff.
Lenore's thinking.
Elijah.
It's funny how the same sort of pattern appears in many different forms, in all sorts of different contexts, situations. Like even if I think about like my practice of hypnosis or my journey of learning hypnosis, right? Like in the beginning, I would just do regression on everything.
Yep.
Because deeper, more and more profound, less and less resistance, and it was just the sledgehammer that would, wipe out any problem. And it always worked, and so I really liked that. And then because I like the success, right? Or the success rate. And, but then I got into like conversational hypnosis and language and words, and for a long time, and probably right around the time I met quite a few of you, I became known as this guy who liked to ask you weird questions and trance you out without ever asking you to close your eyes, or and at one point I was at one point, dude, I was hell bent on proving to everybody that you could hypnotize anyone without ever doing any kind of formal induction, and just by asking a few questions, you could turn their whole life around. And but the pendulum, like I say, it goes to the extreme one way, it goes to the extreme the other way, and these days I find myself somewhere in the middle. Where sometimes I will do the questions and the uptime style, and other times I will do the eyes closed traditional style. And it's interesting also what you were saying about safety and creativity, because I got so well known, or at least within the tiny circle that I had, I got so well known as being this guy who was like really good with language and questions and saying things that would cause people's minds to spin, that I started to want to always deliver it. Like when I would do my classes, I would feel pressure to say something that would make the other people in the audience go, wow.
Yes.
Like they used to go, wow. right? And I would feel pressured to top what I had done previously. And that pressure cut me off from my creativity, and I was not able to form or formulate the mind spinning questions the same way I used to before that, you know? And it wasn't until I give myself a break, it wasn't until I said, listen, bro, just chill, go with it. If it's relevant, you say it. If it's not relevant, you don't force it, and you just kind of stay in the moment and have fun with it, because ultimately the reason I got as good as I did was because I was having fun with it. Right, so you go back to the having fun with it, and then it all kind of comes back, and your creativity opens up again, and you start flowing. So it's fascinating to me how the same thing applies on so many different levels and so many different areas of life. Yeah, just an observation, you know.
Mhm.
You guys are awesome. Mark.
Funny, the question I was going to ask tonight, or I formulated, was it led right into what Elijah was talking about. And sometimes, you know, by the end of the day, we're tired. You know, we've been given 120% of ourselves for every client. And I've noticed the phenomena sometimes that I'll just relax when the next client comes in, and I'll slip into a trance, and you know, my subconscious runs the entire session. I'm just along for the ride. And sometimes that, you know, if I just relax and let it flow, you know, sometimes they get, you know, a better product from me because I just let my subconscious run the session. So
Yeah.
just an observation. Wanted to know if anybody else felt that way when they're seeing clients.
Yep, I've had to do that a couple of times it's interesting when you get into that mindset that I've had stuff come out of my mouth where I'm like, to quote Dr. David, it comes out and you're like, oh, did I just say that? No. And you try and grab those words back, but it's too late, and those words hit your client, and they just go, oh, that's just what I needed to hear. And you're like, um, cool, cool, yeah, great. But I agree with all the stuff Elijah was talking about getting into performance. I think I would call it the performance dopamine hit. Yeah, because you put on a performance, you put on a class, you do something, and you get the accolades, or you're working with clients and you start getting those clients, you're getting good responses and everything, and you're like, yeah, and it almost becomes a drug. And then when you either don't get the results that you were hoping for, or you get a more challenging client, that's when you really feel the absence of that hit. And it can get to be kind of challenging and kind of questioning. That's why I see, you know, some of these performers, actors, actresses, musicians, especially if they come right out of the gate with a number one album or a total hit song,
Mhm.
and they can't get a follow up, and all of a sudden they just disappear off into the ether, and it can be a hard challenge. Elijah.
It's amazing how it keeps coming back around. This is great because that goes back to the state dependent learning,
Yes.
right? It goes back to the state dependent learning. Like, what was the state they were in when they wrote the hit that made the number one versus the state they're in now where they're trying to replicate it? And it's going to be two very different places, right? And they probably when they were doing the first one, they were again probably having fun with it, probably doing it because they loved it, probably doing it because whatever. Whereas now there was like suddenly there's this yardstick, and I'm going to be measured against my previous attempts or whatever, right? And the moment you start competing with anyone, even if it's yourself, like in all competition, someone has to lose, right? There can only be one winner in any competition, right? And so the best thing I think is just to not compete.
Yeah.
The real and this comes back again, like it's so funny. It all comes back like to your in your trifecta, the criteria values, like, well, what's important about it really? What's important about it really? Is it important to top the charts? Like, you already made $1 million. Is it important to make him? What can you do with 2 million that you can't do with 1 million? Answer this question. What can you do with 2 million that you can't do with 1 million? There's very little, right? You'd have to go to tens or twenties of millions before you reach a higher level of what you can do, right? And then if you have 20 million, then what can you do with 50 million that you can't do with 20? Right? And so, like, why? Like, are you really doing it because you want the success, the repeat accolade? Maybe it's the feeling.
Yes.
And usually it will come down to that it's the feeling I had when people were appreciating my work. That's what I want, right? So how can you re-experience appreciation? Well, the easiest way would be to show your appreciation for something else rather than trying to get other people to appreciate you. Like, you would hold that mirror up and start doing it yourself. Maybe you would write a song for the fans who bought your first album. Maybe that would be the appreciation. Or maybe, I don't know, whatever. I'm kind of spitballing and losing my way and just rambling. But like, the point is that I was really enjoying how this conversation seems to be looping back on top of itself in many different ways. And I find it fascinating.
Thank you. Holly.
First, so profound. We love it when you ramble, Elijah. You're so wise, even when you ramble. 100%. The other thought that I'll throw in there too: ego is the death of creativity. Ego is the death of impact. Ego is the death of basically everything good. The second, if I go into even if it's something like this and I want to make a comment, or if I'm going into a session and I'm working with a client, if I go in there saying I'm going to be the best hypnotist ever and I have designed this beautiful, experience for them, and it's all about how awesome I am and what I'm going to do, it never goes well. If I go in and say, hey, I am here to hold space and I am a participant, I'm also learning, and I just have a role and I'm going to play it. And you know what? The client is actually doing a lot of the work. And the part that's even holding the space, most of that's coming from, source, God, whatever you want to call it. It's not me. I'm just part of this. I'm privileged to be a part of this. Then it goes well. If I'm in a class and it's about, hey, I'm loving this process of learning and learning from other people. And, that's another thing too, is like, not only will you not make the most brilliant comment, you'll miss what you were sent there to learn. And not only will you, maybe you're meant to get healing from that session as well. So not only will you not be the most amazing hypnotist ever, you may miss out on some healing you were supposed to experience. or on some lesson that your client was supposed to teach you because you got so into the I'm above my client, I need to teach them, or something like that. So anyway, yeah, kill the ego, as my mentor Martin Snow always says. That's his catchphrase. Kill the ego and great things come.
I'm so glad you guys are here. And then there's silence. The silence was deafening.
You can always tell your best friends are the ones that you can sit and be quiet with.
Yes.
You see, we don't need words to understand each other.
We hit 4 topics tonight. I think we hit them quite well. Thank you all for coming in on this. And I'm going to do something I normally don't do because we've only got 4 minis left. I'm going to bring up topic number 3 that I was going to talk about tonight because I can do it super quick. Who can guess what the topic halfway was for tonight?
Right.
Lenora.
We're nearly halfway through the year.
We are nearly halfway through the year. Who is ready to take a little reflection and future pace to the end of the year and look back and see if we're on track? Look from here and look back to January 1st. Are you on track? Are you in line for what you want to accomplish in 26? And I saw a meme, I think it was on Instagram, of course, but it said, GPS will not say, oh, you made a mistake. It simply says recalculating.
Redirecting,
recalculating. So we're halfway. Take some time, look back what you've accomplished so far, and if there's something that myself or anybody else on the call can help you with to redirect, recalculate, get back on track to finish off the year and accomplish some of the stuff that you were hoping to get done this year, let's do it. Have you been hitting one event a month that stands out? Have you accomplished your year, what they call it, your year defining event? Have you accomplished that so far? Or is there a better year defining event that you could set up and still get done before the year is over? Again, we're all here to help each other, so if you want some help getting that taken care of, or if you're like, well, I don't, my year defining event was to make it through the year. Really? You made it this far. Let's, and it doesn't have to be big money. It doesn't have to be climbing Kilimanjaro. It does, but do something.
baby steps.
Make sure you got something so that you don't look back and go, wow, another 365 pages in the book, and that chapter looked just like the last 10 chapters. And that took us right to the top of the hour. How many times? It seems like on repeat. If you don't believe in time manipulation, join us, because, man, 2 hours seems to go by just like that. And if you do a plank for 2 minutes, I'll tell you what, those minutes stretch out really long. So thank you for offering up your precious commodity of time. I'll also always say, if I figure out how to reproduce it and give it back to you, you'll be the second to know. But until then, know that I absolutely adore every one of you. I appreciate your input, your knowledge, your opinions, all the things that you share here. Even if it's just showing up, because your energy does show up. And for those of you on YouTube, love you, Mom. Love all the rest of you on there too. So please come back in 7 days. Join us once again. But until then, live life, hammer down, put a brick on the throttle, and scream like a 5-year-old and enjoy life, because nobody gets out alive. See you guys. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.